Howdy peeps, your friendly neighborhood Monomachos here, speaking to you from my gig. Overnight shift. Anyway, had some time, wanted to discuss the First Amendment, freedom of speech, censorship, and where we go from here. Um, as you know, this blog is devoted to free and open speech, open debate, robust debate, the whole 9 yards. Some of you have noticed, though, and complained that, George, my comment didn't go through, or my comment was moderated, or somebody's not allowing these things to go through, or whatever. Well, and specifically in regard to the spate of interviews that I did with Miss Gail Shepard, but this has been going on for quite a while now. People have been complaining. Well, okay. Before I answer those questions directly, let's talk about the First Amendment, what it is and what it isn't. The First Amendment to the Constitution is the so-called gold standard. It has an aura about it, a mystique that the other amendments do not have. Okay, but the First Amendment allows us to speak freely, to believe freely, to associate freely, and to petition the government for redress of grievances. That's basically what the First Amendment means. And it only applies to the federal government. It says Congress shall make no law, ... Okay? The states can make laws. Now, later, in 1867, I believe, the 14th Amendment was ratified, which solidified or universalized the entire Bill of Rights to the states, so that the states lost a lot of their sovereignty in this regard. Okay? But having said that, we live in an absolutist free speech environment for the most part. Actually, we do. Does it mean that you can scream fire in a theater? No, not at all. Well, wait, I thought you said we've got free speech. Well, you got free speech, but it does not include these three things. It does not include defamation. It does not include incitement to violence. And it doesn't pertain to contractual obligations. Defamation, there's two types. Verbal defamation, which is slander. Written defamation or published defamation, which is libel. Okay? You're not protected if you engage in those types of speech. Number two, incitement to violence. Well, that's pretty obvious. Anybody who incites violence against a person, whether it's his own personal violence or he's inciting others to join in, that's against the law. Okay, you're not allowed to do that. Third thing is contractual obligations. What do we mean by that? Well, if I work for McDonald's, I'm under an implicit contract to present myself and as a model, a McDonald's employee, and abide by their dictates as far as how they handle the food, how they present themselves to the customer. I'm not allowed to say, you know, I work for McDonald's, but Wendy's, they got better burgers. Now, if that contract is severed, I quit or they fire me, then I can go say what I want about McDonald's, as long as it's not defamatory. Okay. This brings us to the NFL. A lot of people said, hey, wait, they have a right to not stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Actually, they don't. As professional athletes, they had a contractual obligation to abide by certain strictures of the NFL. and their team specifically. In other words, if you play for the Philadelphia Eagles, you can't sit on the sidelines and wear a New England Patriots jersey. Okay, and it's in the contract. You will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. There's even further things. For instance, they'll say if you're a member of this team, and the St. Jude Dream Home people call you up and say, we want Mickey Muscles to help cut the ribbon at the new house and stand with the little crippled kids or whatever, then you got to do that because you're representing the team, and that's in the fine print of your contract. You may not like the little crippled kid, okay, but too bad. Okay, so the three things that freedom of speech does not include are defamation, incitement to violence, and it does not include contractual obligations. Fair enough. Okay, now this brings us to the blog. Am I allowed to censor? Yeah, I'm allowed to censor. Why? I don't have to give a reason, but I'm going to. Basically, some of these comments approach defamation, and especially if they come from an anonymous or a pseudonymous source. Not good, people. Not good. As the kids like to say, not cool. If you sign your name to it, and there's ample proof or evidence, then I'll think about it. Okay? But if you're not going to sign your name to it, I'm probably not going to let in a defamatory or a scandalous comment to pass. Okay? Along those lines, I do want to talk. I think some of us have gotten a little heated, and we've called other people names, and we need to tone that down. I want to apologize here to Dr. Stankovich. I think, as you can tell from the hours I work, I've lost a little bit of control, or maybe control up here, and I published something that I shouldn't publish, or hit the publish button when I shouldn't. So I want to apologize to Dr. Stankovich. I want to apologize to Gail. I want to apologize to Michael Bauman. I want to apologize to quite a few people who maybe I over-responded or allowed others to comment and criticize them in a perhaps uncharitable manner. Okay, so I want to apologize to anybody who feels that I have not exercised the discretion that I needed to exercise. Okay, that's out of the way now. I do want to say, though, that as long as I can keep this blog up, I will keep this blog up, because I do believe in free speech. And I do want to address a concern that some of you have, because we are, for the most part, Orthodox Christians here. And that is, should we delve into things from the past? In the interview with Gail Shepard, she brought up some very unsavory associations and assertions, and some of you took umbrage with it. And I myself thought long and hard about whether we should go down this path. Being a cradle Orthodox, we say, "O Theos ni megalos," God is great. Let's overlook it. It's in the past. Or if it's going on right now, let's overlook it. It'll sort itself out. Folks, we don't have that luxury. Not really. I mean, look what's happening to the GOA right now. It's in spectacular slow motion implosion. It's, as a Greek American, somebody who's Greek on both sides, full Greek, I'm very disheartened. Okay? And it's not going to get any better. It's going to get worse before it gets better, if it gets better. At least for that jurisdiction. God has planted us here in America in a country that has a Bill of Rights. Let's use them. Let's use them judiciously. Let's use them prudentially. Think about it, folks. This pedophile thing within the Catholic Church started incrementally in the late 60s, when a lot of students would join the seminaries to get deferment so they wouldn't go to Vietnam. Some of them were homosexual. By the mid-70s, there were secret gay clubs within the various Catholic seminaries. The Catholic Church looked the other way. Why? Because they needed the money. They needed the tuition that these students brought. Okay? Otherwise, seminaries would close their doors. There are scores of seminaries in the United States, Catholic seminaries. Okay? Then the numbers started growing. And then they became priests, and they became parish priests. And a lot of them diddled mostly little boys, sometimes little girls, but it's mostly pederasty or ephebophilia, 13 and 14-year-old boys as opposed to 5 and 6-year-old boys. That happened too. Okay. What did the hierarchy do? Well, you've got this parish over here, St. Cecilia, let's say, in Boston. You can't close it. So they just moved Father Frank, let's say, over to St. Damascene here in Andover, Maine. And, and they kept on doing this. And it got to the point, and nobody said anything. And there are cultural reasons why they didn't say it. Part of it is because if you were a Catholic and you were a young man and you were homosexual or homosexually inclined, the only honor that could be bestowed upon your family would be if you became a priest. And that way you would not be an embarrassment. Okay? Several years ago, I wrote an essay called The Dumping Ground. And that's what the Catholic priesthood became for marginal young men, some of them who were homosexually inclined. And it became that way also for many of the Orthodox jurisdictions. What are you going to do with little Johnny here? Let him be a priest. Okay. Now, I realize that's an unfair characterization, but it became the norm in American Catholicism, and nobody said a damn thing. And thousands of young children were abused. And some of these young children committed suicide. Others have shattered lives. And now the Catholic Church in America is out to the tune of billions of dollars. And why? Because nobody would say anything. Folks, we have free speech in this country. Let's use it. Let's be prudent. Let's be charitable. Let's be strategic in our battles. But if we see corruption anywhere, and in the church, let's use it. Let's do it, and there are protocols on how to address corruption. Jesus gave some, St. Paul gave some too. There's basically a 3-step process, so I'm not going to bore you with the details. You know what they are. Mrs. Shepherd went through that process, by the way. Okay? And now we are talking about the historical aspect of what happened in the Antiochian jurisdiction 10, 15 years ago. We're allowed to do that. Why? Do we want to hurt people? No. but we want to learn the lessons for the future. So, nothing wrong with free speech, folks. Okay, let's use it. In the meantime, Pax Vobiscum, let's try to love one another. And again, to anybody who I may have offended by allowing a comment to go through, forgive me. I do love you. Okay? And adios.